SoCal Surf with Dan Nappy. Today, bigger surf, stronger currents, and oh yeah, just like the title says, I had to save some guy's life out in the ocean today. And it was one of our crew, the new guy, who's only been with us a couple of times now. And we were out. I think it was too big for newbies, but we took him out anyway, against my better judgment. And we were surfing down at the cliffs. And the current was real strong, and the shore break was real serious. And which it mostly is at the cliffs, pretty strong, pretty hard to get past. So I was about to go out, and then I waited a second, and they all went out, and they happened to make it. And then right after that, a bunch of sets came in, and the shore break was very, very strong. One hit me as I was trying to get out and just laid me back on the sand. So I waited for it to settle down, and it took about 5 minutes, and then finally the break in the action, so I jumped over the one little wave, then paddled for a second, and I was clear of it. And I was able to paddle out after that, clean outside without having to duck dive once. So the shore break was the big challenge this morning, first off. But then the current was strong, so we started drifting north towards the gap, what we call the gap. And before we even got out, we were already down the beach 100 yards. And so it was pretty strong currents, a lot of water moving around. The waves were very strong. And so we were surfing out there by the cliffs and not getting a lot of rides, a lot of paddling, and it seemed to want to push us out deeper because I kept paddling in and I kept being too far out to catch waves. So current was not only strong going sideways, it was strong going out. And so it's kind of got you tired right off the bat. So we were surfing, minding our own business, and I caught a little wave inside. And as I turned to my left, I saw a loose board, and I noticed that it was one of ours. And so I looked further into the ocean, and I saw one of the guys struggling. And just then it decided to get more violent, and a big sets came in that were just really strong. And there was no dead zone. Usually the waves will break and then kind of stop and then reform and break again. But the waves were so big that they broke all the way in. So he kept getting pounded. And I tried to make it to the surfboard in time to grab it, but another wave came and just ripped it and took it into the shore. So we were out there alone, and I couldn't get to him right off because I had to duck dive about 3 waves just to get over there, and he was struggling. You can see the look on his face was not happy. And all of us, everybody who's surfed any length of time, has stories about being held under and being caught in the waves and being sucked under and tossed around. So I knew what he was going through. So I tried to get over there as quick as I could. So I was paddling, and like I said, I'm paddling sideways. So then I have to stop and face directly out to duck dive. If you try to duck dive sideways, it's just going to rip the board out of your hands and tumble you. So I had to stop, point the board out, duck dive, and then resurface, and then paddle again. So like I said, it took me about 3 waves to get to him. And as I paddled up to him, and he had that panic look on his face, I said, "Don't panic. Relax, everything is fine." And it's so easy to say, but when you're in that situation, panic is the only thing you know how to do. And so all that does is tire you out more because you're paddling, you're kicking harder, you're breathing harder, you're using more oxygen, you're duck diving, and so you're holding your breath and you're panicking. So as soon as I got to him, I hadn't hang on to the surfboard to catch his breath. I looked around for his board, and it was gone. I asked him what happened. He said the leash just clean broke off his leg. And so it was, we still weren't out of danger. It's 2 people on a tiny 6-foot board. It's really not going to work. So he caught his breath for a second, then another wave came, and I said, we got to duck dive this. So he duck dived it, I duck dived it, but it pulled me a little bit further away from him. So I had to paddle up to him again. And then by this time, we're starting to get closer towards the shore. And I can see that we're making progress, even though he doesn't realize it. He's just wanting to cling to that board like life depended on it. And from that point of view, it was for him. But I tried to assure him that we weren't in that big of a danger. We were clear of the larger white water coming in. So just a matter of ducking a few more waves, and then we'll be able to get our feet on the ground. And then we'll have to deal with the shore break. But that, at least you can touch the bottom. And when you're in a situation that he was in, touching the bottom is a real security blanket. And so a couple of waves came, it pushed us a little further in, And so by then he started to touch the bottom. And so we kind of relaxed for a second and watched the waves. And as I saw a break in the waves, in other words, they weren't a bunch of big shore breaks, the smaller ones were coming in, I said, now's our chance. So we started to go in, and he was a little taller than me, so he could stand up a little sooner. And I caught a little wave on my board, and I was going to throw it on the sand and go back and get him. But by this time, he was shallow enough that he was waist high. And so I said, after this next wave hits you, drift in a little bit and then make a run for it. And just in time, because right behind there was this gigantic shore break wave that had to be, looked like 4 foot or 5 foot face on it coming into the sand, which that's not good because that's going to land right on the sand and you don't want to be in it. So he hustled out. We both hustled out in time. It broke behind us and we were fine. It washed up on the sand and washed me up on the sand. And I'm laying down in a couple inches of water because the shore break is very strong and just rips you right off the ground. But as soon as you stand up, the water washes back to the ocean and you're fine. So we stepped out, and I didn't see his board right off. Then as I looked down the beach, I saw his brother waving at us, and he had the board, and he was further south of us. So we had drifted way further south than even the board did because the current was so strong. And so we walked up to the beach, and everybody looked at it, and we saw that the leash had snapped right off. A clean break. It looked almost like it was cut. And so we're going to use that as a joke, telling him that we cut it just to get him used to being in the ocean, but we didn't. That's just what happens. I usually like to try to change out my leashes every year because they decay from the salt water and everything. And so if I can do that, that'll preserve them. But I don't want my leash to break out there either because it's just a pain in the neck to get in. When it's big like that, I mean, you just got to take your time and swim in and duck dive, and dive under the waves, and then you'll make it fine. So pretty exciting. He was very thankful that I was there to reassure him. And, he says, thanks for saving my life. But really, I don't know that it was that crucial. I think if he just would have stayed calm, he would have been fine getting in. And interestingly enough, there was a guy out there surfing without a leash. And while we were waiting for the rest of our guys to come in, he had lost his board twice and just swam in. And, here's a guy that's been surfing, quite a bit longer than our new guy. So he didn't think anything of it. So he swam in twice to get his board. And both times we were there to catch his board for it. I don't like leaving him on the sand on the shore break because it can bust the fin or even break the board in half in that shore break. So luckily for him, it didn't do too much damage. His boards are fine. So he was able to swim in. So it wasn't too serious, but for rookies, it's very serious. So that was it. Again, thanks for listening. We're going to go. Probably not tomorrow or Sunday, of course, but we'll be back in the water on Monday, and the surf looks like it's going to be better. So we'll see. Thanks for listening. Check out our sponsors, Merch Hero, TaskBullet.com, Nappy Clothing, and, of course, our favorites, Swing Easy Hammocks. Thanks. Bye.